an attorney in Maryland, just outside Washington. Hell of a nice guy, but we'd come back from a mission. Officially, we were rewarded. Well, first of all, you have to understand, most of us are juvenile delinquents. And officially, we were supposed to get a couple ounces of bourbon, but we didn't have to take it after every mission. So when we got a quart or a fifth, the intelligence officer would give us our booze allowance. He also gave us candy bars because we enjoyed that more.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, most people don't realize how young we were.
Yeah.
So what was your age when you first went in?
18.
Mm-hmm. That's young.
They, sort of interesting, the Army started drafting at 19 rather than 18. Don't know why. But anyway, I'm reaching back at a poor memory, but I had to pass an examination to get into flight training. And it was a general knowledge test. And fortunately, I read books. And if you didn't, you couldn't pass the test. So anyway, I qualified for flight training and almost washed out. I got to the last stage, which was formation flying, and I had a bad instructor. He was a little guy all pissed off because they made him an instructor rather than let him go into combat. And teaching me formation flying, he used to yell at me. God damn it, Huddleston, get up in it for. Anyway, he made it worse. And finally, he grounded me, which was the first step of kicking you out. Well, I'm sitting there, depressed, and another instructor came along, said, "What's your problem?" And said, "Chiapas grounded me." "What for?" "Formation flying." "Figures. He should never have been an instructor. So, come on, fly with me." So I flew with this guy, and when Chiapas came back, he had ferried an airplane and found out I had flown with this guy. He raised Cain, and the instructor said, "There's nothing wrong with him. You're the problem." And that did it.
Yeah.
I mean, he got the message from a fellow instructor. You don't yell at a guy teaching you formation fly.
Not something that precise and delicate. Not something that requires that precision. And
Right.
yeah, was that in advanced training? Was that your advanced flight
That's
school?
how close I came.
Yeah,
If that other guy hadn't decided otherwise and blamed the instructor, I would have had a whole different life.
well, that would have, they would have invested a lot of time in you by that point. I mean, I would think that.
Well, they didn't care.
Yeah.
It wasn't their money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, that's the whole story. You have to be lucky.
Yeah.
And I was lucky that he was gone at a time when I could prove myself to someone else. So, different life.
Was that pretty difficult, formation flying? I mean, I would think that that would be pretty tricky.
If someone's yelling at you
Yeah, yeah,
with the power to wash you out, it's tough.
yeah.
But I enjoyed it. It never bothered me. And we used to take pride in how
Close.
close we could fly. So,
Sure, yeah.
and I managed quite well, but again, it was one of those lucky experiences. He was out of the way. Ooh, look at this.
I know you flew in elements of two, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you took off on a mission, did you take off at the same time in a staggered formation? Do you recall? That's what you see in the
I
movies
think-
all the time.
I won't take an oath to this, but I think we did. We wanted to get off the ground as soon as possible.
Sure, sure.
And I think so. Yeah, my memory is slipping, but it was a wonderful experience.
I bet it was. You know, a long time ago, you know, my father died when I was young, but he was actually toward the end of the war in pilot training. But that was later than you, and by that time they realized we're not going to need you. So, you know, he never completed it.
Yeah.
But my mother was a civilian secretary at Scott Air Force Base.
What Air Force?
Scott Air Force Base, it's just outside of where I grew up in Belleville, Illinois. Military Airlift Command headquarters, or used to be MATS way back where in the Military Air Transport Service. But, so you know, that's sort of been,
You will recognize von Braun better than Lindbergh. But it's sort of, I found it interesting that in Lindbergh's autobiography, there's actually a photograph of the crematorium where all the slave laborers were fed. And Lindbergh's looking at it. He didn't relate that to von Braun. I brought this book that it was reported that von Braun made it a point not to visit France because the author of this book would probably seek revenge. Von Braun was a war criminal writ large, no doubt about that. He himself went to Buchenwald to pick slave laborers, and they were doomed. So there was never any doubt in my mind. But he had such a nice personality.
yeah. Yeah, he was suave, wasn't he? He was suave.
He could sell himself to anybody, but this book kept him out of France.
When you went to, did you go to Dora and Middlebrow? The caves where they were building the rockets after the war? Didn't you go in there? Where they were building the V2s?
Yes. I ended the war within sight of the underground rocket factory. And ordnance had that targeted to where as soon as it was overrun, close behind him were what they called T forces. I don't know why they were called that, but they moved in quickly to exploit the German weaponry. And ordnance set up a ballistics missile unit and put a man in charge. I'm digging back into my memory, named Toftoy. Interesting name, you couldn't forget it. So he was in charge of the ordnance ballistic missile program, and von Braun was taken prisoner and held in New England, and Toftoy ordered him to be escorted as a prisoner of war from the prisoner of war prison in New England to Fort Bliss, Texas. And a major by the name of William Hamill, yeah, H-A-M-I-L, William Hamill, was to escort him personally from the prisoner of war camp to Fort Bliss, Texas. And I talked to him about the trip, and von Braun was on the long trip from New England to Fort Bliss, tried to convince Major Hamill that he was not a war criminal, that he was a good guy wanting to fly to the moon. Well, Bill Hamill would have given him a one-way ticket. So,
When you were there, did you see any evidence of the places they kept the prisoners, the slave labor? Did you see the camps where they kept the slave laborers when you were there?
Dora,
Yes.
yes, but from a distance.
Gotcha.
My unit ended up boy, I'm thinking back now. I volunteered. See, what we were informed that Germany was divided into areas of occupation, and we were in what was to be the Soviet zone, and we had to get out of there. Well, the agreement was you wouldn't, if you wound up in what was to be somebody else's zone, there was four, France, England, Soviet, and us, you couldn't take anything out. Well, we didn't obey that, nobody did. They wanted to get as much of the advanced Soviet equipment as we could. The Cold War was on the horizon, and they were not our friends, and I was given a list of what we knew the Soviets had that we wanted, and I was to go into the future zone, Soviet zone, and get as much as possible. I mean, it was the Cold War, and we weren't doing what the others were, England and Soviet. So anyway, that was an interesting experience.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really find anything of great value, but I got to tour this, what was to be the Soviet zone, and learned a lot. What I would do, I would go to the units that reported the presence of some weapons that we might want, and we would get them out of there before the Soviets took over. One interesting experience that I always mention when I talk about it, a unit reported passing through a German town. They were manufacturing weaponry, so we headed to that small. When I say we were set up in an officer with a jeep, a driver, and a sergeant with a machine gun, and to find what we could. And they told me they had, they told me of a village that had German weaponry. We found the village and we found the plant, and it was a bunch of little old ladies drinking how do you pronounce it?
Swastika, yeah, flags.
Flags.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was funny. Okay.
You know, I was going to say that, you know, because my mother was a civilian secretary at an Air Force base, she would meet, you know, retired, you know, Air Force personnel. And one time, I was very young, but I got to talk to a retired Air Force full colonel who, when he was much younger, had been a member of the American volunteer group in China, the Flying Tigers. You know, the Flying Tiger group before we got involved in the war. And I got to talk to him about his experiences, and he told me that was the greatest time in his life. He had more fun then than he ever had after. Did you ever feel that way? I mean, of course, he was very young. He would have been your age, I'm sure.
I really, it was an experience I never forgot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't know you'd call it fun. It was
Exciting is a
exciting.
better word.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
Well, you know, nowadays, I think, you know, if you're an average 18 or 19-year-old kid, if you got like a motor scooter, it would be a big deal. But they were giving him this P40, you know, with 1,000+ horsepower engine and 6 machine guns, you know. And, you know, that would have had to be the ultimate toy, you know, for a young guy, I would think.
Piloting that aircraft was the most exciting because it was the first one you took off in by yourself.
Solo, yeah.
Solo.
Yeah.
And I remember being advised, if the engine conks out, don't try to get back and land, just plow into the ground.
Yeah, just fly it, yeah.
And that was the most I was flying a P-40 during the invasion. And as far as I was concerned, I was part of the invasion. And boy, I was
Yeah.
going under those clouds. Yeah, that was the biggest experience, because, before that you always had an instructor to save you, but here you're on your own.
Yeah.
First time out. Great experiences.
I'm not a pilot, but every pilot I've talked to tells me that's an experience you never forget, that first solo flight when you're on your own,
Yeah.
nobody else there.
That's right.
Yeah. What would you say was the most difficult aspect of flying the P-47? Was there anything about it that was particularly tricky? I'm sure there was a lot that was tricky, but...
Yeah, the Razorback did not have the bomb release on the stick. You reached down here, you armed it, and then you released it. And I got them backwards once.
Yeah. Released it instead of arming it.
That's right. So there's an unexploded bomb somewhere in Belgium.
With your name on it?
I like the Belgians.
Yeah. I understand that most of the Belgians really liked the Americans. Is that true? I mean, were they pretty...
You're getting a little personal.
Well, okay, I won't go there.
We had a Saturday night dance, and in addition to all the nurses that were off duty, we had a hell of a good band, and somehow or other they seemed to, all the units had good musicians.
Yeah.
So we had a wonderful Saturday night dance, and the nurses appreciated it. They could get away from the blood and gore and come to our Saturday night
I'm
dance.
sure.
So, yeah, that was... There were rumors that some of the bomber crews were having engine trouble and had to land and have the plane inspected while they came to our Saturday. They came out of the plane in full uniform. She heard that. That was
I'm not listening.
a fun period.
So that would have been when you were at Saint Trond?
Yeah, that was a marvelous base.
Yeah.
That had as I recall, a excellent landing strip, and yeah, that was a great base.
Is that the place where the museum is with your uniform in it?
Yes, that's. Somebody told me you shouldn't have given up that uniform because that belonged to you. You could wear it anytime you wanted to. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people get to see it and learn about you there.
Uh-huh.
During your training, either pre-flight or primary, did you ever use what was called the link trainer?
Yes.
Okay.
Very
What did you
definitely.
think of that?
That was great.
It was helpful?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. In fact, I used to think I'd be nice to own one.
Yeah.
It was pretty safe too.
I understand there is one at
I
Vincennes. Is there a link trainer?
I think so.
Yeah.
As I recall, I had 2 forced landings and I never had any problem with the link. Oh,
Did you ever fly this? I know that your primary trainer was the Fairchild, wasn't it, or Fairchild?
PT-19.
Yeah.
Wonderful aircraft.
Did you ever fly the Stearman?
No,
Okay.
and I was told you didn't want to. It had too narrow landing.
Yeah, yeah.
And they did a lot of ground.
Ground loops, yeah.
But that PT-19, you could drop it from 50 feet
Ah.
and it would survive.
Did you, either in training accidents or in combat, of course, I'm sure everybody, all of your fellow pilots were your friends, but did you lose any close friends in training or combat? I mean, people you were really close to?
I recall I lost one. But I would have to confirm that with the record.
Just check here something. Oh, I saw a really interesting video on YouTube. It just recently, there's a airline pilot who seems to know a lot about military aircraft. He has done a whole series on the P-47. He's got like 6 or 8 different videos. But he just put one up about a P-47 pilot that sounded very interesting. He was a Polish pilot, but he was able to actually get in and fly with the 56th Fighter Group because Gabreski got him in.
Yeah.
But he wasn't officially part of the U.S. Army Air Force. He didn't have a uniform. He wasn't paid. But this guy was credited with a lot of kills.
I can
And
believe it.
his name was, they called him Killer Mike. His name was Boleslaw Gladich. Had you ever heard of this guy?
Yes.
You have, okay.
I trained under Bob Johnson,
Yeah.
who was one of the leading aces. I was about to make a point and it got away from me.
Yeah, this fellow who did the video says that Bob Johnson mentions him in his book. Also, Gabby Gabreski, and who was it, Hub Zemke? Is that right, Zemke?
Yes.
They all mention this guy at one time or another in their books, but not many people seem to have heard of him. So,
What was his name?
Gladich.
Well, it sounds familiar to me.
Boleslaw Gladich.
Yeah.
But they called him Killer Mike for what, I don't know why Mike. But he started out, he was a Pole, and he got into the Polish Air Force too late. Poland had already been overrun.
Yeah, but
So
he got away.
He flew his plane to Romania, which was still neutral at that time. But then he was interned by the Romanians, and he had to kill a Romanian guard to escape.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
And he got to France, and he was going to go to fly with the Finns because they were fighting the Russians, and he hated the Russians too because they had invaded
Right.
Poland from the other side.
Yeah.
So by the time he was getting ready to go to Finland, the winter war in Finland had kind of died down. So he flew with the RAF in France for a while, and then he wound up flying with the Americans with the 56th.
Yeah.
So
There were 3 buddies who went to fly with the Finns and didn't, and got back to England and flew with the RAF, and unfortunately all 3 were lost. I thought that was very interesting.
Well, this fellow survived the war, and he actually became some kind of a therapist after the war. Some sort of a psychologist, a therapist. Can you imagine? But they say he hated the Germans. All he wanted to do was kill the Germans, whatever it took. He'd ram them if he had to. I mean, it just, you know, because of what they'd done to Poland. Yeah, so.
Yeah. Well, you see, you got all my missions.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about some of these, because some of them, for example, you have some of them here that say patrol bombing, direct bombing. Was there a distinction between patrol bombing and direct bombing?
Yeah. We were aimed at this target,
Okay,
and we picked up this on our own,
okay.
called armed reconnaissance.
So this was a target of opportunity, basically?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the word.
So during the armed recon missions, the armed reconnaissance, were you directed to go to a specific area for recon, or were you just kind of free to go wherever your element
It
needed?
involved both.
Okay.
At a different time. That's funny. My memory lasted mostly on the post-mission briefing by the intelligence officer. His name was Joe Cohen.
Mhm.
He was an attorney from Maryland outside Washington, and he used to always joke with us. He controlled them 2 ounces of bourbon
Booze.
and the candy bars.
So he was a good guy to get on the good side.
Yeah, he was. He was a good guy.
Was there a mission that you flew that really stands out in your mind as being the toughest, the hardest?
Ooh.
I think you said in some of your interviews that attacking the German air bases was one of the toughest things because they were so well defended with
Yeah.
anti-aircraft.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We had this famous experience of my flight leader who came off a target and a cannon shell went through the one blade of the prop.
I've seen that picture.
And that
It's amazing.
made Life magazine.
Yeah, yeah.
It still fascinates me, and I have a print of it. The unfortunate thing is, his name was Ed something. He survived the war, stayed in the military, and then at 39 died of lung cancer.
Mm.
One of those terrible things that should never have happened. That's a remarkable photograph, though.
Ed Wright.
Have you seen I'm sure you've seen it at some time, but there's a photograph of a P-47 that was flown by a Brazilian, I believe a Brazilian pilot who, yeah, there it is, this one. He clipped off most of his wing. He hit a chimney and he clipped off most of his wing and he flew that back to his base
Never heard of that.
and he landed wheels up. He landed a wheels up landing there. And
You know.
they wanted to junk his plane and he said, no, that's a good plane.
There was a famous test pilot, and he was asked to force rank World War II fighters, which anybody could do. But he did, and he put the P-47 at the top. And over the Mustang and over the ME-109, so on. And somebody, why? And his answer was, because any damn fool could fly it.
I would have thought that the engine management, I mean, you had a lot of stuff that you had to control. I mean, you had your cowl flaps, you had your supercharger lever, I mean, you had to watch your turbine RPM. Didn't you have to, wasn't there a lot of stuff you had to do?
Well, let me put it this way. You were so young that most of your brain was unused.
So it wasn't all cluttered up yet.
Before play.
So it wasn't full of junk.
That's right. I never had any trouble flying it.
Wow.
I wasn't the best or the worst. I was just good
Yeah.
and survived.
Was there a mission you would say was your favorite mission that you really felt like you had done a really good job, or was really successful?
I've been asked that before, and I had an answer, but I've forgotten it. We used to joke with the intelligence officer when we would report in after the mission, and he'd say, "Now look, I know you did. This was a piece of cake, and you didn't earn anything, so I'm not going to give you your liquor or your candy bar." But we did. We had a good mission. We got paid.
How did you navigate on these missions, on the arm? I mean, you were the wingman. You'd follow your leader.
Yes.
But how did you figure out how to get back to base? Was it just by reference to ground objects, or was there? I mean, you didn't have GPS back then.
Right. And I got lost very easily. I had sense enough to fly west rather than east. Mm-hmm. And after a certain length of time, I would make radio contact with the tower and get a direction.
So could the tower? They had a direction finder.
Right.
They could identify
right.
what bearing you were at.
And when I made the request, there was silence, and then suddenly he came on and said, "Land, you're over the base." That's a true story.
Well, I guess
And she knows I have a terrible sense of direction.
I guess your instincts were pretty good then, huh? You got.
Oh. Yeah.
What would you say? Let's say a young person. You were talking to a young person, and they told you that they were considering entering the military as a career or whatever. Would you recommend that? What would you say to them?
Yes, I would recommend it. You have to have a temperament for it. You give up your freedom, some of it.
Sure.
You follow orders.
Yeah.
But yes, the military could be a very satisfying career. I've known some career officers, and it's a short career. You wind up with a good pension.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of advantages to it. I did not stay in the military because I needed a GI Bill. I found out later you didn't need it because they would send you to college anyway, and that was a mistake on my part because I was hard up for money under the GI Bill and going to getting the experience on full pay and allowances. Okay.
Yeah, that was a great thing for a lot of veterans, wasn't it, the
Yeah.
GI Bill?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you one more thing, and I kind of went out of my head here.
Come on, ask me some harder ones.
Oh, where was I here? Well, I want to, at our museum, I want to make a little slide presentation. We have a great big TV, probably a little bigger than that one, in our simulator area. And I want to have a little, like a slideshow on it, partly about your experiences, also about just the training process in the Army Air Force at that time, what was involved. And I'd like to have you somehow review that. Maybe I can send it to Eva when I get it done. Because I want to make sure it's accurate, and I want to make sure I'm not telling anything you don't want told, or omitting something that you would like to have in there. So is there anything in particular that you would like to have presented on a little slideshow like that about yourself, about your experiences?
I can't, nothing comes to mind, so I'll just take a ticket on that and let you know.
Okay, well, you can let me know after when you see it. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. We know, know about your friend Floyd Blair. Do you know any other surviving P-47 pilots who were in combat in World War II at this time?
No, but again, something will come to mind in
Yeah.
the middle of the night.
Sure.
Do you know a pilot?
Floyd Blair is one of the leading characters. I never got to know him because he served in a different squadron.
507th,
We were
right?
sort of
Yeah.
a family. I was in the 506 and he was in the 507th. So,
Now, you were a replacement pilot, of course, right?
yes.
Do you have any idea who you replaced and what happened to them? I imagine they didn't. I would expect they wouldn't tell you, but I don't know.
I think you just served so many missions and they'd send you home.
Okay, rotated. Uh-huh.
Yeah, rotate, yeah, and I remember the trip. In fact, I published an article about my trip to St. John with a sort of funny experience, and you can read that.
I think I've seen it in one of your interviews.
Yeah. It was unforgettable.
I imagine. Was that the first time you had been to Paris when you went when you were sent over from?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of funny that I was commissioned as second lieutenant, but a lot of my colleagues were given flight officer status. So that,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know why, nobody knows
So
why.
what's the distinction between a second lieutenant pilot and a flight officer?
Right,
I don't know what the difference is. Or,
I don't either, except when we were sent to St. John, there were 4 of us and 3 of them were flight officers. So I was the youngest and most unsophisticated, and I was in charge.
well,
Fortunately, one of the flight officers spoke a little French, so he got us to the right train. Oh, funny is the way of the government.
yeah, I guess that's the Army, huh?
Well, they have to have a rules. They don't go by opinions, they go by, if you're a second lieutenant and they're flight officers, you're in command.
Before Pearl Harbor, before we got involved in the war, had you ever thought about wanting to become a pilot? Or was that just something that you decided that, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
What the Army Air Corps did was remove the college requirements in time for me to take an examination and become a trainee. That was very, very nice of them. And I would have probably taken my skinny little body into the infantry and tried to beat up on those big guys. So they cooperated with me, and I took the test and went into training and succeeded.
But I mean, when you were younger even than high school or early high school,
Everybody wanted
you wanted to be
a pilot.
did they? Okay.
Everybody wanted to follow Lindbergh.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I hadn't thought of that.
He was our hero.
Yeah.
Turned out to be not a nice guy. Somebody said he had numerous mistresses.
Yeah, I heard that too. So,
I'm not sure I'm saying the right things for the record.
No, you're doing good. We can edit if we need to. Tom's interested. He had an uncle that worked for NASA, and he was interested in your time at NASA. Can you tell us what you did for NASA when you were working for NASA?
I did recruiting for them. Yeah, that's the main thing as I recall. Like most large organizations, NASA was badly managed. I can say that without qualification. It applies to all organizations. As somebody said, managers suck up and shut down. And there's a lot of truth to that. I was employed under a couple of really bad people.
Tell us what you did when you were at White Sands.
I was technically the training officer. Boy, that's funny. My mind's sort of a blank.
So you were kind of involved with personnel at both places.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm failing the test.
When you said you flew mostly the Razorbacks, did you ever fly the bubble canopy also?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, again, they were assigned, there were limited numbers, and the squadrons drew straws as to who got the first bubble.
Yeah.
And my squadron lost, so I flew a lot of the Razorbacks. And as I said, the only difference was that bomber engines.
Now, how about the visibility with the bubble canopy as opposed to the Razorback?
Yeah, it was better, or we wouldn't have had it. But I didn't get involved in aerial combat. I only remember seeing two enemy aircraft. One was a dual engine, and the other, I spotted a ME-109 on the deck. And I called out to the leader what I had seen, and he said, "You go get it, but don't take long because you got to catch up with me." And I made the mistake. I did a wing over, took my eyes off of him, and he ducked into a canyon and got away. He would have been a sitting duck too.
Yeah.
When you,
Inexperience.
when you would dive on an enemy like that, would you do the wing over or go inverted just for better visibility?
I like to do the wing over.
Okay.
More exciting. Yeah.
The P-47 had a reputation of really being able to dive.
You know, it's sort of interesting. It was designed as a high altitude interceptor, and if you carried out that role, I could have read this book on the way up.
Didn't climb that fast.
No, it did not.
Yeah.
It was. I don't think anybody at the time had the wisdom to recognize it was going to be the best dive bomber in the inventory. You go down, boy, you're gonna go down. 7 tons of it.
And nothing could keep up with you. No enemy could keep
No.
up. Yeah. Well, that would be a convenient way to escape if things were not going well.
How did you know? Yeah. Yeah, it was an exceptional aircraft. There's no doubt about it. And that's the way it was. The buyers didn't always get what they wanted, but got something better.
Yeah.
It's what you're able to do in combat that proves the worth of the aircraft. And I went on a visit to the Air and Space Museum when I heard they had an exhibit of the P-47. And I stood with a few people listening to the docent describe the P-47 as a great on ground attacks, but not worth a diddly in aerial combat. I took him aside and said, "You don't know nothing about this aircraft. Look at the record. It destroyed more enemy aircraft in aerial combat than any other American fighter. That's a fact." He blushed and apologized.
Well, you had to use different tactics. You had boom and zoom, dive on them and then shoot them up and...
You'll have to talk to the combat pilots
Yeah.
and let people tell you how they build up a large number of enemy aircraft destroyed.
Well, one of the things...
The best way
Yeah,
is very unfriendly. You sneak up behind them and
shoot them
in the back.
Shoot them, yeah. I think that's how Baron von Richthofen did most of his kills. He got that way. I think he was good at. He was a good sneak.
You didn't fly alongside and
Invite him to
go
a duel.
have a duel.
Yeah.
You might lose.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you guard us with your life?
Oh, I'll be guarding.
And
If
if
I
there's any
step out, I might be opening
You'll
it up
be held
and seeing what's
accountable.
in there.
You know, this video that I've described with this Polish pilot,
Yeah.
Killer Mike, Robert Johnson has a little passage in his book about one time this Polish pilot was flying Johnson's plane, Lucky, you know,
Okay.
and you know, Robert Johnson was worried the whole time that he was going to either not come back or come back with the plane totally shot up, because that was his reputation.
Yeah.
And he came back, and the plane was fine. But he had gotten on the tail, and this is another thing that he mentions in his book, that he got on the tail of I believe it was a 109. And allegedly, you know, the P-47 wasn't going to be able to get in a turning fight with a 109, but he was right on the guy's tail. But he was with two other guys, and he wasn't shooting at him. And later they asked him why, and he said, well, my gun trigger failed, or the guns weren't armed, or something. So he had no guns. But he was trying to fly this guy, get him to do a stall spin. I mean, he was right on his tail, trying to force him into a stall spin, or get him to run out of gas, you know. But the two other wingmen were able to shoot this guy down, so.
I trained under Bob Johnson at Abilene, Texas. And he was a remarkable pilot. I unfortunately was assigned to the 9th Air Force and devoted to tactical operations instead of the 8th
Right.
that did escort duty. So otherwise I would have been an ace, there's no doubt about it. You hear that?
But they probably would have made you fly a P-51.
Well, I wound up reviewing books as a sort of a personal hobby, and I read a book that mentioned that Hub Zemke got shot down, and I couldn't resist responding, pointing out Hub Zemke never got shot down. His P-58 came apart in a storm.
Ah,
That's a fact.
is that right?
But that's embarrassing that he bailed out when his plane came apart. Oh my.
Did you ever have to fly through really bad weather? I mean, you know, the planes didn't have any de-icing or anything like that back then, did they? I mean, that must have, that would.
Well, I'm sure I did, but it didn't stay with me. You took it as it came.
Mhm.
And, you know, you gotta remember here, one advantage being young had, you were overconfident. You figure you could be successful in whatever you were involved
Well,
in.
that's why the military drafts young men, isn't it?
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Now, who's going to say nice things about Von Braun?
No? Nobody, not me.
My name's Tom.
It said that he, at the end of the war, Von Braun would never go to France out of fear of running into the author of this book.
Yeah.
Because it exposes him as a war criminal. And he has a whole chapter on Werner von Braun. So yeah, he was a war criminal, but
Well, he proved to be useful, I guess, useful enough, sort of like Hirohito, the Japanese
Yeah.
emperor. I mean, as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, he was a war criminal,
yeah.
but he was useful to, you know, after the war to keep the Japanese.
The photograph of him next to
MacArthur.
MacArthur is
Yeah.
funny. He's a
Yeah,
little
he's
bit-
about, yeah, we have that in the museum.
This is a great book, though.
Can I take,
My
a-
favorite.
can I look at that?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it before.
It's, as I say,
It's really
convicts-
good.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that book out when I get home.
The use of slave labor was sad, because they worked them to death.
I read that more people died building the V2 than were killed by the V2.
Right. And I got interested because my unit landed virtually across the river from the underground rocket factory. And that's where I developed and kept the interest and realized the use and misuse of slave labor, which included von Braun actually went to Buchenwald to get slave labor. Now he used Jews to build the underground plant, and then he just put those to death. But then when he started building the V2, he had the SS pick up slave laborers from France because they would be better educated and give him more assistance in producing the V2. I was fascinated by the V2, and in due course, now, when the Army liberated the plant, a general named Toftoy ordered the collection of 100 V2s in whole or in part to be gathered up and shipped to El Paso, Texas. And the Army officer assigned, there were two officers involved. One was to gather up 100 V2s or in whole or in part and ship them to the White Sands Missile Range, which was an artillery range. And the other was to deliver the rocket experts. And that included a major named Bill Hamill that I spoke to personally about his escorting von Braun, delivering him to General Toftoy.
Were they all sent together to the same place? Okay.
Well, I'll take that back. Yes, they were. Toftoy was put in charge of the Army unit developing ballistic rockets, and they were going to learn all they could and test them at the renamed range in New Mexico. I talked to Hamill as how did that trip go with von Braun? And he said he just let von Braun say whatever he wanted, and of course he talked about rocketry and what it could do, such as land a man on the moon. He was an expert. Now, rocketry's been around a lot of time. Remember,
The Chinese, I mean, they
Yeah.
had rockets way back
And
when.
we celebrated Fourth of July with rockets. So it became a major weapon. Okay. Anything else?
Well, I've asked everything. I'm
I
afraid
brought
I
this
don't
book
wanna,
along to prove that Von Braun was a war criminal.
Yeah.
well, I'll have to read that.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out.
It looks like a good one.
Did you know anyone at NASA that ever worked with Von Braun?
Yeah, there were, he had been relocated to Huntsville by the time I got there, but yes, there were two of his rocket team that were left at White Sands, and I talked to both of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, he was an opportunist.
Sure.
He served Hitler, and when Hitler wasn't around anymore, he sued us, and we took advantage of it. We exploited his knowledge, and that's the way it works.
Well, Tom was interested. Tom's uncle worked with him at NASA in Huntsville.
I'm the one who called you.
Oh,
I'm Tom. I talked to you on the phone.
yeah, I was prepared to convince you that
Well,
we should have hung him.
yeah, I mean, I find myself on both sides. My uncle actually took advantage of the GI Bill and went to the University of Evansville, or the Evansville College, and graduated with electrical engineering degree, and ended up in Huntsville on the ground floor of all those engineers coming into Huntsville, you know, as they came in. And he actually worked with Von Braun's team, but he was in charge of, he actually was in what they called command and destruct. They actually had a unit called command and destruct that was in charge of the actual guidance system, and it also incorporated a device to destruct it in case it went awry. And I had a lot of good conversations with him. He was my dad's brother, and he worked with Von Braun during the Saturn I and 1B. But he always said, of all the attributes that Von Braun had, he was a good manager. In other words, he got things done.
Didn't all Germans?
Yes, yes. they
And if
did.
you didn't do what they said, you were in deep.
You were in trouble. Yes.
There's a
Yeah.
daughter of one of the Americans who married a German, and she wrote a book
Okay.
that said that the Germans were better treated in Huntsville than the Jews that were citizens. And I can believe that.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I'm not trying to put up a wall that said that he was the greatest person that walked, you know what I mean? I just was, my uncle was amazed at their knowledge and the way they, engineered things. And he of course enjoyed it. He left NASA in '65 and went to work for the Army for an independent contractor, and he was on the ground floor of the Patriot system. He actually was involved in the guidance of the Patriot system. But he said, working down there, it was quite an experience, of course, for the space,
Yes.
industry.
There's two involvements when you judge someone.
Yeah,
What's legal and what's geopolitical.
yeah. Good
And
point.
I can understand that. If you
Yeah.
want to go the legal route, it's there.
Right,
He could have been convicted,
yeah.
but we were more concerned with the Political.
Exactly.
the Cold War was
Yeah.
on.
And of course one of his major counterparts was Arthur Rudolph. you know.
Arthur Rudolph,
And I know I have a little bit of history, of course, after they used this group, they did finally bring Arthur Rudolph to a point where they were going to press this issue of his involvement. I think Von Braun would have possibly been headed in the same direction, but he died in '77, you know, so.
yeah, the Arthur Rudolph story fascinates me because
Okay.
right after NASA gave him their highest award for managing the Atlas missile, an agent or two agents from the Department of Justice showed up at his door and said, Mr. Rudolph, unless you renounce your citizenship and get your tail out of this country,
Yeah.
we're going to prosecute you as a war criminal.
Right,
He left.
right,
He
yeah,
tried to get back in, and justice held firm
yeah.
and said, you're not going to be.
Right, and I agree. There's a good chance that Von Braun may have been brought to that point.
Oh, absolutely.
If he wouldn't have passed in '77, yes.
Again, legal or geopolitical.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
von Braun was our hero.
right.
He could have been our victim if
Right.
we'd have.
But I always look at it from the prospect, though, the Cold War, as you mentioned earlier, I think was the main driving force of the technology versus morality, right?
Yep.
You have to decide which direction they're going to go in from a standpoint of view of our defense system. And,
See,
yeah,
our leaders see it one way,
mm-hmm,
the public see it another.
right, yeah,
We have to follow the lead.
yes,
And
good
I
point.
say this book is handy to
Yeah, I definitely am going to look
read the
into
chapter
that.
of Werner von Braun.
Okay, I will. Well, like I said, I just had interest because my uncle was down there, and I, you know, was able to, as a young boy, I witnessed some of the things that happened, you know, at Marshall Space Flight Center, and
Yeah.
was always intrigued with the story of what took place.
Well, I think there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah,
He didn't. Von Braun made it a point not to visit France after
Uh-huh.
the war. He's afraid he'd run into Jean Michel.
uh-huh.
And yes, he would want revenge
Yeah,
over being
over
treated
being
as
treated,
slave labor.
yeah.
So,
Well, I definitely appreciate you bringing that in because we definitely would. We're going to definitely look into that. Yeah,
I'm gonna read that book.
yeah.
When was that Rudolph got basically?
In the
told-
early '80s,
Oh, okay.
I don't remember exactly the years, but there was a turning point.
So he had become no longer useful at that point?
That, you know, you can say that,
Yeah.
you know, everybody has a different opinion, right, on how that took place. But that's pretty well the premise of it, I think, was the fact that, you know, a lot of people were ready to hold some of these people accountable.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about Ludwigsburg and in Germany, they actually had a lot of this stuff documented on what took place in that period of time, and decided to start looking into these people. And of course, Arthur Rudolph became one of the main individuals that they thought, you know, we really feel you were responsible for a lot of these things. So,
It's interesting.
you know, it's
can a subordinate
yeah,
be a criminal without his boss being affected?
yeah.
I have trouble with that.
Yeah. And I understand that point of view. I mean, I have wrestled with this a lot. I'm retired now, and so I started looking into a lot of the history, you know, from that standpoint of view. And it's a struggle. You know, Mr. Newfield, Dr. Newfield, you know, he's one of from the Air and Space Museum.
Yeah.
He has written some pretty good books about von Braun. You find him in his book sometimes kind of going both ways, but most of the time it's like, I don't think he should have been.
Can't you go both ways on everybody?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. But no,
Yeah, I enjoyed
Mhm.
the fact that he did that biography. 'cause
yes,
he's talented.
I have read that book.
Yeah.
It's very comprehensive. You know?
I met him when they displayed the P-47 in the Air and Space Museum.
Mhm.
They had a special ceremony,
Okay.
And I read about it in the paper, and I got in touch with him. I wanted a ticket to the special event when you show off the P-47. And he says, why? I said, because I flew it in combat. He says, you'll have a ticket in the mail.
Yeah, yeah.
So I enjoyed that very much.
I've watched, he's got some good documentaries, you know, even on YouTube you can find some good documentaries with him about that history.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I have a question. So when you give a talk about this topic or whatever at the museum, will you look at both points of view?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm not one-sided in this. I only became interested in it because of my uncle.
Yeah.
And you know, when we look back on history, I mean, I remember I've actually been inside Marshall Space Flight. I've actually witnessed most of the test stands. I actually was involved with tearing down one of the test stands.
Oh, okay.
So I had a connection with my uncle and being there, and so that's what. In fact, that whole premise of that whole history is what got me interested in World War II. It was actually, that was my back door of learning of what von Braun did in Germany. Then I started really looking at the whole war from a bigger picture.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I am definitely, you know, I'm more interested in this presentation of trying to just give the facts. I'm not going to try to tell people how to think, is my perspective.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. And it gets people thinking too.
Right.
You know, like you said, what are the moral issues and what's this? You know, and then.
Exactly. In fact, that's actually one of my slides. Will just be the actual heading will be technology versus morality, because to me that's the gist of it right there.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
But I want to definitely just I'm doing it. I want to do it more from a historical point, because a lot of people I think have lost. They don't know that history, and I'm even one that. We're going to do it in two segments. We're going to do one in his life in Germany, and then of course one of it with his life here in the United States. And there's a lot of history to me in the 50s that's lost, even with our military, because the expansion of the rocket, and it's more about the liquid fuel than the solid fuel. The solid fuel, of course, is our gunpowder, most of them. But you know, the Air Force and the Navy were deep into this also. I mean, the Army was competing with them for money in Washington to get a lot of their programs going. And a lot of people think that, some people I think put von Braun on a pedestal, like he was the only guy in the United States doing this. And that's not entirely correct. I mean, there were the Navy was the Vanguard system with the Navy, of course. And then the Air Force was working with the Atlas and the Titan in the later 50s. But no doubt they decided once Kennedy, once the battle of the capitalism versus communism started, that started that space race thing, you know, when they took up Sputnik and it exploded from there.
Mr. Huddleston, do you think, looking at the history, and we're talking about von Braun and war criminals, do you think that the Allies let a number of the war criminals off just because they didn't want to deal with that at the time? I know they prosecuted the first 22, but there were a lot that didn't get, at that time, prosecuted, but it seems like later, when we're talking about like the 80s, then attitudes kind of changed and like, well, why didn't we go after these people?
Well, I'm not an attorney, but I do know that the Department of Justice has a choice to prosecute or not to prosecute, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. That's still happening today. They have not finished. You know, every once in a while you'll hear this still in the news about seeking out, you know, different people they feel that were war criminals.
Right, but I think it was later on before those attitudes came along. Why do you think? Do you have an opinion on why you think they didn't pursue that in the beginning?
I discovered this book early on, and the Washington Post had a contest. It said, do you know of a book that's not well known but should be well known? I told them about this book, and they mentioned it in the newspaper, and I got a Washington Post red book bag for pointing it out. A congresswoman came along, Jewish, and saw this and led a campaign to establish a war crimes unit in the Justice Department. So I feel very proud of that.
Yeah.
Because it needed that.
Exactly.
Is that in that book, that any of that in that book, or this happened after that book was written, correct? I mean.
It was as a result of
Yeah,
them
A
reading.
result of this book, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think this was, came out in about 1975.
okay.
And,
Do you remember her name?
no, but I'll remember it in the
You know,
middle.
you sent me some material. Now that I think about that, that might be in there. Let me look back over that,
Okay,
yes.
but
Yeah,
in fact,
Okay.
yeah.
That's interesting.
that is interesting, yeah.
Well, I've kind of felt that way myself, that we kind of brushed some things under the rug after the war. I don't know if we felt like we'd been through enough at that point or what, but it wasn't until years later that we looked at some of these crimes that took place and said, well, why didn't we prosecute this person, this person, this person?
I've always felt that Hirohito should have been, I agree with keeping him around for the initial occupation of Japan because he was useful. I mean, keeping the Japanese population.
One of the things.
But a
that
couple
occurred-
of years later, I think
Yeah.
they should have put him on trial.
You know, with Von Braun, of course, when he was young, he always expressed the interest in space exploration. And I know he used this for his defense, obviously, but I do feel like from one standpoint of view, when he came to the United States, he's still focused on that quite a bit. How do you feel about that?
I'm slow to forgive,
I understand,
and
especially when you're over there fighting for
And-
us, yeah.
if my name was Jean Michel and Von Braun showed up within striking distance, I would beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, and I understand.
He went to Buchenwald
Yeah,
to get slave labor to build a V-2 missile. And on that basis, he was a bad guy,
Yeah.
but he was also very knowledgeable,
yes.
and we should and did exploit his knowledge.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that point of view. We really do. I respect that point of view from any person that was over there fighting for us, dealing with all of those atrocities. Yeah, it was.
You know, I think,
I'll confess, I went to the White House and shook Richard Nixon's hand.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of that,
Yeah, right.
much.
Yeah.
I know, I just
Yeah.
found that folder because it was at my house, because I was looking for the Von Braun picture in case I had it, and the stuff at my house. And he's got like several folders of all the Nixon,
Yeah.
because
Era.
he was working
Well,
there.
yeah, he was.
And like all these pictures, well, some with you and Nixon, but just all the different things with Nixon
That's-
that he was able to get because he was working there.
Right.
You know? And it just cracks me up. In fact, he has a friend, Kitty Kelly, who's an author, and she sent him for his birthday one year, which I have at my house. She had it laminated, the cover of, was it the Washington Post or the Star? When Nixon's gonna resign, like the full page newspaper
Yeah, she made it.
cover, she had it
I wondered
laminated.
what happened.
I have it. I have it at my house. because we had to get stuff out when we moved you. So, just like someday, somebody will have interest in that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Before I left, I promised I would say this. I still want to shake your hand, and I want to thank you for your loyalty to this country and what you did back in those days. Being a veteran, I have the highest respect for all of you.
You only learned half the story.
Right. Well, that's why we're always seeking for all of it, right? We always want to hear.
Come and visit.
Yes. Yes.
She mentioned Kitty Kelly. I met her years ago when she first came to Washington as a struggling author, and I found out she was my first wife. My wife was there. She was surviving on candy bars, and so we invited her to Thanksgiving dinner, and Kitty Kelly never forgot that.
Yeah, great.
And we became lifer friends. And recently I read where she belonged to a young writers group, and she gave them a gift of $300,000. She's a very successful writer.
Well, we wanted to tell you that we have the sign now for our simulator room. It's the Robert and Pepita Huddleston simulator
Room. I think,
room.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
that sign is going to be mounted above our simulator room at the museum.
Nice.
We'll send you, if you give me your email address, I'll send you some photos.
Yeah.
So, because they're gonna be too small on my phone to look at.
I was afraid I was going to be remembered for other things.
What do you want to be remembered at for?
What are we going to do with this?
I don't know.
You know,
Just hang on to it for now, I guess.
I was thinking
Unless
maybe
you want to
they-
give it to one of them, but I don't know if you would need it in the future.
I'll tell you what I would like to do. If you would let me read that, I will ship it back to you. How's that sound?
Well, you'll have to pass it around to us.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll let some of my colleagues here.
You don't need to send it back because I may not be here.
Well, I'll tell you what we're
Here's
going
my
to do.
famous book.
Yeah, I actually have read that. I read that about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I reread it. I read it twice.
That's a good, I like that short story. That's good.
What would you do if you discovered he was your neighbor and you go to church with him?
Yeah, that would
Right,
be
yeah,
something.
that would be something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yes, let's pass this, we're gonna pass this around,
Sure.
but I would definitely, would like for you to see you get this back. Yeah, especially it's got the,
Yeah, I
Some
just
memory
brought
here.
that
yeah.
to convince you that
Yeah, well, believe you me, I'm not presenting this story about Von Braun until February of next year. And I enjoy reading this type of material because it gives me
Yeah.
it gives me a better insight. Yeah, yeah.
go whichever way you want. Good
Well-
guy, bad guy.
Well, both.
We're
you wanna give them
we're gonna
Yeah.
split it, yeah.
You want to
Yeah.
give them that?
I don't see
Okay.
why you shouldn't keep this.
Okay, I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good picture
Yes.
of Von Braun.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to figure out how to get this stuff through the airport. Yeah, yeah.
We're,
Without getting, yeah, you can put it in your
yeah,
briefcase.
I'll put it.
Yeah.
Now,
Put that in
this
there.
folder's on Hitler's shadow Nazi war criminals. Would any of this be of interest to the museum? This looks like from a talk you did. This is a slide. Allied occupation zones.
Oh, yeah.
idea. I don't know what that camera.
Yeah, I don't know why not.
Is it balanced?
Yeah,
If they want something like that.
yeah. Would you be interested in having a picture of Europe broken into the occupation zone?
Well, sure.
Yeah, I was fascinated by it.
Yeah.
I actually went into
This
the
one too.
Soviet zone trying to steal what belonged to them.
Uh-huh.
They would not have liked me.
No, I'm
That
sure.
card's on.
Oh, that's probably what's interesting, yeah.
Have you been back to Belgium or Germany after the war?
Yeah, we'll
Yes.
try to get a.
And that's a beautiful country.
What did you, I mean, that, you, I don't know how to ask this, but I mean, do you have any kind of lingering